Guys, today we are going to be replacing an alternator in a 91 4.0 Ranger. So, a couple of steps to do before we can get to this. First, you got to disconnect the battery. You got to remove this, and then we'll get the tension off the belt. So, first things first is the disconnect. Okay, we just got the battery unhooked, and this is all you need to do for like standard procedure. But my battery is dead, so I'm going to fully pull it out. We're going to disconnect the +2, and then if you're doing the same, there's a bolt down there, and then you can pull it out and take it to go get charged. Okay, so now the battery is out, so we're going to pull off this here, the air intake, whatever you want to call it, this from the filter to the throttle body. So it's just this screw right there, and then we have this that connects to the oil cap. It's covered by this, but that should be it. I think after that we'll just be able to like twist it upright. If not, then we'll get under this. Okay, so that is done. It doesn't twist upright, but because it's just rubber, you kind of just flex it out of the way, and then you've got full access at the alternator and at the tensioner, which is right under it, which is rather fortunate. You can see right there. Pretty nice of them. So next up, we are actually gonna pull off the serpentine belt right on that. We've just gotten the serpentine belt off of the alternator. It's a 5/8 socket right on there, so we're pulling it that way. What I found worked best was to come around from this side and like do a rowing motion, and then with your other hand slip it off of there. So now we've just got to pull these bolts here and there, unclip this, disconnect that ground right there, and unclip that, and then we'll be set to pull it out. Okay, so I've just gotten off the 3 main bolts. These are they're all 1/2 inch. They're on there pretty tight. It took the impact to get them off actually. I'm still threaded a little bit, but there. So now that we've got all of those out, next step is to disconnect these, like I said before. This one, if you look under there, it's just got a little clip on there. Take a screwdriver and pry it out. That one's just a little nut on there, of course, probably a 5/16. And then for this one, you've just got these two. It's the same as that, 2 clips, but they're on the sides each. Just work that with the screwdriver. We've also got this out now, as well as that, and then after this, I'll be able to move it freely, which makes it really easy to get these out. But you're also gonna, while you're at it, take note of these, which sit on top of the on top of the alternator right there. It's like the opposite of that now, you know. And so with that last clip removed, you have now removed your alternator. And now we can begin on the installation. It's pretty much the same process. It's pretty much the same process. We're gonna drop it in, goes down just like that, you know, same the way it came. You've got your plug right there, your ground point, and then these I don't quite understand, but we will figure that out in just a second. So when comparing these, you'll notice, of course, the older one has just this plug in here versus this, the replacement piece, has just got these leads. So I figured it out. You know, it's pretty simply a crimp and heat shrink, but what you're going to do, like the opposite end, is I just set this in here to show you. You'll see, of course, the 3 wires coming out of there. And you'll notice these are all in line. So what I'm gonna do in a moment here is cut off this clip right here. And then we're gonna strip back the wires and do exactly what it says. Okay, so we have unclipped this plug and then stripped back all of the wires. You can see pretty clearly. So now we're just going to take these and, you know, put them on, and then I'll crimp them and get these. Very nice of them to put wire shrink on it for me. I'll get these all squared up, and then we'll plug in this. We'll hook up our ground, and then we'll bolt it back in and be on our way almost. Okay, so I've gotten these all crimped on. I left this one just exposed before I shrink and wrap them all to show you, in case you were doing the same thing, what a tight enough crimping looks like. There. Pretty far off of, you know, being perfectly round as it was before. And you want to make sure that you have more than enough wire to fully fill that socket like that is, to make sure you have a good connection. You can put solder in these. I'm not going to bother because I know it's going to be a solid connection anyway. As for determining which wire, I just used the plug, which is in the alternator, the old one now. If we could zoom back up, just to make sure I was putting in each one in the right place, because you can't see it on there, but you can see that each wire was striped, except for, of course, the smaller one. But you know, the smaller one is way smaller, so it's pretty easy to figure out where that goes. So now with that, we're gonna shrink these up and then do the rest. So I just finished shrinking up all of the shrink wrap. It's not really the highest quality, but it'll do the job at least. But I am gonna say, those, if you're doing this, and I'm about to do this, get some wire tape, wrap it right around there especially. And if you're really feeling thorough, I'm not gonna bother with this honestly, except for maybe right in the middle. But I would say run it all the way down. If you wanna, I'm just gonna do here and somewhere in the middle though. And so I've got the wire tape now, it's wrapped around. I chose to do right at the end of the shrink wrap just to keep that in place. And then right here, so now I'm gonna remove this because I don't need it anymore. And then with that, we're gonna get this thing back in place. And when you see it again, I'll have this plugged in and I'll have the ground hooked up. So we've now got this back in here. We've got this ground hooked up, we've got this plugged in, and I've just started. I haven't really torqued down all of these bolts. Did some research on them. There isn't really a specific torque spec. It's more or less just tightly down. So we're gonna go ahead and do that now. So now I've got these all right in place. They're not tightened or anything, but I just did this so that now, and I would recommend, if you're watching this, that you do the same, just to look at the alternator's placement, to check that it's, you know, in parallel with all of the other pulleys, just to be sure, because, you know, it could look the same and all that, but then it might be a different one. So it's a good thing to do, just to be safe. So now you can see, of course, that this one is in the right spot. So we're gonna go ahead and get these 3 tightened down. So I've now got these 3 down, all super tight and set. You know, this thing isn't going anywhere now at all. So the next thing we're gonna do is take this, pick it back up, and we're gonna string this on. You're gonna wanna make sure that everything is strung right. Just noticing like that idler there, you know, whatever it may be, you wanna just make sure nothing's shifted. So then after we get that on, we're gonna put this back in place and just be just about there. So I've just gotten this strung up now with the pulley, but what I've noticed is that the pulley here is smaller than on the original alternator. This actually isn't a bad thing. It means that I get more power, which is really beneficial for, like, you know, performance-y stuff, if you want to call it that, in a truck like this. But that also means that this belt, like, it'll be cranking faster overall, which means that this fan in here is going to cool this a lot better than it normally would, which then means that this part's life will be a lot longer. Okay, so I forgot to mention, but part of having a smaller pulley is that, at least on these trucks, the tensioner has a lot of travel when it's, you know, getting tighter, as you can see by how close together those two are now. So what I had to do was take this extension here and put it on the pulley before I released the tension, so that it would like take up some of the belt, so that I could like actually get the ratchet off of this. You probably noticed in the other takes that it was just kind of chilling on there caught up in the fan while I was doing everything else. You put in this, like the socket, like I used the wide end of it. You just kind of like put it on there, and then as I dropped the tension, I just kind of like hit it and it like popped out, and then just kind of dropped onto the ground there. And it worked out pretty easy. I was gonna use a socket, but then I figured I might not be able to actually get it out. It worked out a lot better. But so now we're just gonna reconnect this here and then put the battery back in. So I've now got, these are in, that's just, it kind of hooks up. That's screwed tight, and I've just set this back in. This isn't untied at all yet, but the first thing that we have to do is put in this bracket here for the battery, and you can see down in there, that hole though, there, that, you know, of course is for this, but you'll notice also the ridges there on the side of the bracket, which is what these are for, and then that just keeps the battery in place. So yeah, we're gonna put this in and then hook these up and then start it. So now we've got the battery is all hooked up. This is down in there nice and tight. You can see the ridges I pointed out on there. The battery's in there nice and solid. We've got these, they're hooked up nice and tight. This thing is on there good and happy. We've got our wires, we've got this plug, we've got this little ground here. Everything is ready and good to go. Smaller pulley size means that I will get more power. It's better for, you know, performance, if you want to call it that. And now, oh, it's dying, but I had more light just a minute ago, so we'll see if it's got the juice to crank as is or not. And no. So we'll be back in just a second. Okay, we've got this now hooked up for a jump, you can see, and